North 28th Street or Main Street. And he really took a shine to her. But Carol Jackson, in his blunt sort of way, asked her out to a movie. And she quickly said, "Are you a believer in Jesus Christ?" Well, he didn't know what to say. He'd been 6 years in the Army, ran away from home, lied about his age, and was pretty good windmill hand by this time. And she wouldn't go out with him on Saturday night unless he took her to church on the Sunday night before. Well, he kept looking at her, and she was my mother, and he kept looking at her, and he didn't like the sound of church, but he liked that little auburn-haired girl. So they got together, and they fell in love. He became a Christian. His mother's influence, and my grandmother, my granddaddy was slow to come around. But my mother and dad met because of my mother's faith and steadfast conduct. So they got married. My dad became a lay preacher. He still drove the laundry truck. We traveled in it to Acton and Membrano and Falls Creek, and he pastored quarter-time churches, two of them, and a half-time church. And when the fifth Sundays, they all met together. And so I'm just telling you that to tell you why I came to Grapevine. I started school in Godley, Texas with Burl Gillum. If you know that name, he was first graders with me and in Godley, Texas. Now, my dad used to say that's the name of the place, not a description. And so Grapevine First Baptist became pastorless. They got on the trail of my dad. He was going to high school at night to get a diploma, a seminary the daytime to get another diploma, and he was pastoring churches. And the First Baptist Church of Grapevine called him to be the pastor of the church here in Grapevine.
Will you show the picture of his dad and of Richard and his parents? Can y'all see over us?
Okay.
Wasn't he handsome? I'm not surprised my mother-in-law took after him.
I'm setting this up for Wanda to tell you how she got to Grapevine. But my daddy accepted the call of God and the people of First Baptist Church Grapevine, and took the pastorship. Oh, okay.
I get to tell my
okay. Yeah.
My roots are a lot deeper in Grapevine than his are. I probably don't need that. My great grandfather, Valentine Alexander, came to Grapevine in 1895, thereabout, and he came with my grandfather, who was 10 years old at the time, my great-grandfather was a widower, and he came to Grapevine. He already had a daughter living here, so the roots go even further back than that. And my grandfather did the rest of his growing up here, and he married a young woman named Clem Hurley, and her family goes even further back than that. So the two Baines met, and my grandparents bought a farm when they married in 1899 in Flower Mound. It was exactly adjacent to the mound, and they raised 12 children. Well, they had 12, they raised 10. My great grandfather is buried at the Presbyterian Church, as are two of my infant aunts who died. So I go back that far. My parents are buried at Bluebonnet Cemetery. The rest of my grandparents and aunts and uncles are buried at the old Grapevine Cemetery. So while I didn't live here all that time, I had roots here, and we often came to Grapevine. We actually didn't get off the farm all that much, but when my parents or my grandparents went to town, it was Grapevine. So I've always known about the city of Grapevine. But when do I go on?
Yeah.
Okay. When I have to ask permission. When I was 10 years old, my daddy wanted to leave Dallas and come to his hometown. So he brought us to Grapevine. Now, my parents had lived here with my older siblings, but I was number 5, the last one, and so I didn't get in on any of that. But we moved to Grapevine in 1948, in maybe the 1st of February. Now, the way I met him, no, I didn't actually meet him then, but his father accepted the pastorate in Temple, Oklahoma. They left Grapevine in January of 48. If you're counting, I came in February of 48. I missed knowing him as a 4th grader by about 3 weeks. But boy, did I hear about him. Everybody was sorry that Richard Jackson had left Grapevine. All the little girls were sorry because he was so cute. And all the boys were sad because he was a member of their sports team during recess. We didn't call it recess then. What did we call it? Maybe we did. And the teachers were all sad because he was one of the few boys that made straight A's. So I heard a lot about Richard Jackson, a lot more than I wanted to hear about Richard Jackson. But I kept thinking, I can't imagine what this boy must really be like after all this that I'm hearing. Well, even more impressive, Maureen Chastain lived down the street from me. She was my best friend, and I needed a friend when we first moved to Grapevine, and she became one of my very best friends. And she and I would walk to school together. She was a little further up on Franklin Street toward town, and she would come by my house and we'd walk to school together. Well, she was Richard's little girlfriend when he left Grapevine. So on Valentine's, Lorraine got in the mail a heart-shaped box of candy from Richard Jackson in Temple, Oklahoma. You think that didn't impress all of us? She put that heart-shaped box on her books and brought it to school, everybody to see. Now, she didn't offer us candy, but she did let us look at the box. She kept that box for years. I would go in her bedroom and there would be that box sitting there and reminding me of Richard Jackson, whom I had never met. So all through the rest of the 4th grade, the 5th grade, the 6th grade, every now and then the Baptist kids would come back to school and say, the Jacksons were in church Sunday and Richard is still so cute. So then the summer before our 7th grade, The scuttlebutt was around. The Jacksons are coming back to town. Brother Jackson's going to pastor First Baptist Church again. So I thought, I'm going to meet this guy. So Maureen came by and picked me up the first day of school. We spent days deciding what we were going to wear. And she came by and picked me up, and we were walking to school. Those of you that remember the old grade school, that long, wide hall and all the classrooms came off of it, we were walking down that, kids running everywhere. And we were in 7th grade. We were junior high. We were way above, these little kids. But anyway, so as we were walking down the hall, I said, Maureen, as soon as you see Richard, show him to me. Point him out to me. Not that I think you'll have to, because I think I'll probably recognize him from everything I've heard. But if I miss him, point him out to me. She said she would. So we were walking down the hall thinking we were such big stuff. And she dug her fingernails into my arm. And she said, there he is. And I said, yeah. And I said, where? And she said, there. And I talked to her publicly. And she said, he's coming in those double doors. Well, I lowered my vision down, and here was this little boy walking in those doors. I was looking for a young King David. Head and shoulders taller than anybody coming in, with flowing hair and ruddy good looks. And this is what came in the door. Now, you know, 7th grade girls outgrow 7th grade boys. You know, that's just a given. Even today, it's still, yeah, you're not moving. So I said, oh. And Maureen looked at me, and she looked back at me, and she said, oh. And we turned our nose up. We went into our classroom, and I forgot about him for a while. And then school and double doors seemed to have a lot to do with our relationship, because sometime during the sophomore year, probably in the spring, I was walking down the sidewalk. If those of you that remember, if you went to school, you left the grade school and there was a pretty wide sidewalk, and then you went in the end door of the high school where Mrs. Becker's English. Okay, you got this thing. Okay. I was walking along there, and this young man was walking in front of me, and I said, wow, I wonder who that is. And I got where I could see him a little better, and I said, that's Richard Jackson. He is now 5'10". He's broad-shouldered. He's good-looking. And so I thought, I could be interested in any time you want to stop me, you can. Maybe. So I started flirting with him, and he didn't notice. Yeah, broke my heart. So during the following summer, matter of fact, it was August, for all my flirting, it didn't do any good. He wasn't showing any sign of catching on. So we had a bunch of us, and you know, those of you that remember growing up in Grapevine in those times, kids ran in bunches. I won't call us gangs, but we ran in bunches, you know, and we'd go to the movie and all sit. The older kids sat over on the left, and we sat on the right. And so we had come out of the movie, and we were all standing around out front talking. And Richard was there, and I was there, and he still wasn't showing any sign of being interested in me. And I saw on the front of the movie house, you know how they advertise movies that are coming? Well, there was a billboard in there that said, Howard Butt Jr. is preaching at Farrington Field in Fort Worth. So I said, I would love to go here, Howard Buck Jr. You see that sign over there? I said it to the group. And everybody looked over at it just to be polite to me and said, yeah, and turned away. He didn't pick up on that. So in just a little while, I thought, I'm going to try one more time. And if he doesn't catch on this time, either A, he's not interested, so I need to move on, or B, he's too stupid to know. He would have a chance with me if he picked up on it, in which case, if he wasn't that smart, I didn't want him anyway. So I said, I wonder what the dates are that he's going to be over there. And I said, oh, it's this week. Now, this was Tuesday night, right? So he finally said, I'm going Thursday night. Would you like to go with me? Now, I had planned on saying something like, oh, are you really? Well, that would be nice. Yes, I believe I would. No, I said, yes. I would love to go with you. Now, you want to tell them what you had to do to...
Well, I ran home, and Dad was watching the news on the little 12 and a half black and white television. And I said, Dad, I've made a mistake. And he said, what have you done now? And I said, well, I asked Wanda Alexander to go with me to hear Howard Butt on Thursday night, and I haven't asked you if I can use the car. And he said, is that Jimbo's daughter? And I said, yes, you can go. So that started the relationship, and I to say something about the Grapevine people. They did a lot of things for me and my family and whatever. But I spent all day, every day, 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, on Jess Hall's farm.
In the summer.
In the summer. And I was watering crops the summer of our turning 15. And I had 2 rigs, and I changed the pumps and the sprinklers every 30 minutes and every 45 minutes. And then I'd sit around in the shade tree, watch the sprinklers. If they had gotten stuffed up with something, I'd go out and clean them out. And the Lord had a lot of time with me. And he told me louder than out loud, I'm calling you to the gospel ministry. And I said, Lord, there's one preacher already in the family, and that's too many. I'll go off, get a college degree, come back, lead the RAs, the Boy Scouts. I'll teach the boys in Sunday school. Just don't call me to preach. Well, that went on. 10 hours a day, me and the Lord together. No interruptions allowed. And so I walked the aisle at the First Baptist Church of Grapevine the Sunday night after I turned 15, getting to be a sophomore in high school. And I told my dad, what are you doing here? I said, well, God's calling me to preach the gospel. And he and Mother had been praying that way, but hoping God wouldn't do it. And he announced to the people at the First Baptist Church Grapevine that I would preach the next Sunday night. So I got home and I said, Dad, why did you do that? What? Do what? Well, you announced that I would preach next Sunday night, and I don't know what that means. I don't know anything about it. He said 2 reasons. If God's calling you, it's time to get started. And if God's not calling you, it's time to find out. And this time, next Sunday night, we'll know which one of those is true. Well, I preached that sermon, and people, the Grapevine, encouraged me, and I preached 6 or 7 minutes, told them what I was going to tell them, and told them what I'd told them, and my older sister, who was a Baylor graduate, she came to Grapevine to hear me, and the best she could say was, at least you know how to give the invitation. I'd been raised on that. So the next best thing that happened, well, I started the first football game at quarterback. I was replacing a 4-year legend, Herbie Hodges. And we played Carrollton, and I didn't do badly. But a guy from Fort Worth called me and asked me to preach at his church. And I said, I just have too much to do. I have to, the pressure of this football. And I told him no. Well, we were playing at Northwest High School. We had a running team. AV called a run, and I called a pass. I threw it to the Northwest, and their defensive back ran in the end zone. Score, Grapevine, nothing. Northwest, 7. Richard Jackson, nothing. And A.V. Collins could talk to you. And he said, I'm going to put you back in there. And you do what you've been coached to do. Well, I called another pass. Only this time it was not intercepted. I fumbled the football. They picked it up. It's 14-0. Needless to say, I didn't see anything on the playing field for weeks. And I think that was a lesson. I have committed to, in the rest of my preaching life, if God opens a door, I'll walk through it, no matter what else I want to do. And it's paid pretty good dividends. But the First Baptist Church Grapevine, they didn't know what they were doing. My dad moved away, and I lived with the Halls, and
Howards.
the
Howards.
The Howards. And so the oldest adult department in the First Baptist Church Grapevine asked me to do their devotionals for 1 quarter. I didn't know what in the world I was going to say. But you have to do it 13 times in a row. and you get schooled up or sold out. And those people encouraged me, complimented me when I knew that their compliments were unmerited. They encouraged me. And then I got to preaching the gospel along with playing my last 2 years of high school football. And I went to Howard Payne on a football scholarship that were Division II that time, and they had full scholarships. And I wanted to study for the ministry and to pay for it by playing football. Well, I did pretty well as a freshman, and in spring ball, Kenneth Gray was Little All-American, All-Pro guard for the St. Louis Cardinals 5 or 6 times in a row. I thought, I'm going to put a butt block on Gray. And I was learning how to use the top of that plastic helmet, and it wasn't illegal in that time. And I came up in a scrimmage game under Gray's chin. It knocked me nearly out. Gray, I came to, and Gray was laying over there. It had hurt him, but all the coaches and the trainers and the water boy were all around the All-American. And I had a concussion too, and they didn't pay any attention to me. Well, I went to the doctor. The doctor said, "Are you going to make a living playing football?" And I said, "No, I'm just trying to hang on to my scholarship." He said, "Well, if you get hit that way, you could never walk again." So I came home to Grapevine and sweet talked Wanda, and we had planned to get married after my college. And I said, "Why don't we just do it this August?" And she lovingly said yes. And so we got married after my freshman year at Howard Payne. And
Can I interrupt you here?
yeah.
Okay. Will you show number 18?
Oh, okay.
Okay. This was when we first started dating. These are my nieces. You know, I think that was probably the last picture on a roll of film Mama wanted to get developed, and so she took it. So that's why the little girls are in there. But if you will notice, hanging on that trellis is a pair of crutches. He hurt his knee playing football, and he was supposed to be on those crutches, but no, they were hanging. But you see, he's on a cane today. This is that knee, and the result of it from there. And then number 17, you talked about us getting married.
Well, that's best decision. That's the best decision I ever made, except to Jesus.
Taking Jesus, you're right about that. Billy Ree, I'll bet you remember him preaching that first sermon, don't you? Yeah.
Heard him preach many times.
But that one, you got in on the first one. She may be the only one here that would have.
Well, I want to draw this to a close and to give you a chance to respond, but I owe everything to the Grapevine community. My wife, my in-laws, And my schooling, my teachers, Mr. Moncrief was a dear, dear man to all of us. And I owe it to guys like Orville Tate and Sherman Millender that played football with me. And they knew I didn't have a whole lot of ability, but I tried hard. And they accepted me because I tried hard. And I want you to know that it's not about me. It's about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it was to start with. I went back to Howard Payne, took a little open rural church, stayed there 14 or 16 months. I got called to a little town of May, Texas, that had a high school and all that. And I started seminary for there. And from there, and I took the Bluffdale Church at the Stephenville and Granbury Road. And then I got called to Cleburne, and I was called to the First Baptist Church of Sulphur Springs when I was 25 years old. We had 2,500 members. I didn't know what I was doing, but the people of God and God's Holy Spirit made a beautiful 4 years of that. And God called me, not out loud, but louder than that. He called me to leave Sulphur Springs, county seat town, First Baptist Church, and to go to Arizona, where they thought Southern Baptists were just y'all clubs. People, Southerners that met on Sunday to say y'all to each other. But to God whipped me around the gum stop, and I said, Lord, I surrender to preach the gospel in Texas, not foreign missions. And he whipped me around the gum stump. Some of you saw me lose my hair over the years on TV. Some of you blessed me by telling me you prayed for me when I was televised. And the fact of the matter is, I don't take credit for one thing in my life. It's God's people, anointed by God's Holy Spirit, giving themselves in witness. Yeah, we got to 22,000 members in Phoenix from a handful, and we had more than that baptized because of their profession of faith, most of them adults. But I heard my Sunday school teacher teach yesterday, and he said something about the parable of the mustard seed, and the littlest seed grows the biggest crop. And he said something about, our ministry in Phoenix. He didn't belabor it. And I said, I went up to him after it's over, and I said, it's the people. The people did it. The people. The church is built not from the top down, but from the ground up. And I learned that early in my life. God's people, filled with God's Spirit, walking in God's Word, telling their friends and neighbors about Jesus. That's all it is. So it's not about me tonight. It's about Grapevine and the family relationship you have. Grapevine, a place to grow up. Now, Wanda says, I never did grow up. I just ran around and got bigger. But I'm telling you, Paul said in Philippians 1:21, for me to live was Christ, to die is gain. Wow, it's a win-win deal. It's a win-win proposition. It's all about Jesus. Now, I didn't take advantage to come in here tonight and tear your thought processes down if they don't agree with me. I just came in here to be honest. And growing up in Grapevine was a real blessing to me. And growing up in Jesus has been a real blessing to me and to Wanda. We have 2 sons, a daughter, 5 grandchildren.
I think there's 6 of them.
6 of them. We have 2 great granddaughters.
He's not wrong about that.
Yeah. So God has been good to me and to us. But let me tell you something. 2 Timothy 2:13 declares God is faithful. He cannot deny himself. God is faithful. He's faithful to us, and he cannot deny himself. If you labor under the guise of your building up great faithfulness, God is faithful. You just leave it to him. When we believe not, that's 2 Timothy 2:13. When we believe not, yet he abides faithful. He cannot deny himself. So I just wanted this girl to stay with me. And she's been with me 70 plus years. And
Are you going to tell them what you told me about leaving?
yeah, soon after we got married, I told her if she ever left me, I was going with her.
You know, can I?
Yeah.
I don't know how long we've taken here, but I attribute so much of what we have done, been, and had to the roots. You know, you have to have a foundation. And we feel like we got ours growing up in Grapevine.
Yeah.
We were so safe. You could bicycle, walk, all over town. And if you were walking home and you got caught in the rain, you could go up on any porch and the people would come out and talk to you till the rain stopped and you were safe being there. And I just feel like the Lord gave us such a foundation before we even started the ministry that He is talking about, and allowed us the privilege of living a life of serving Him. And it required us leaving Grapevine, and that was hard. My parents stayed here, and so we did come back on a regular basis until we lost them. But our hearts are always with you, and we keep up our membership because we want that newsletter every month. We want to read the mayor's column and all the rest of the stuff that y'all are up to and what the programs are coming. You are very dear to our heart.